Good evening. Tempe Union continues to maintain social distancing for the safety of our community. The open meeting law permits a public body to hold a remote meeting through technological means and implement procedures designed to safeguard the public's access to the meeting. We are streaming this meeting live on the district's YouTube channel. The time is now 6 p.m. and we are reconvened for our study session for the demographer's report. At this time, I will pass it on to Dr. Mendeville.
Thank you, President Garcia and Vice President Barraza, members of the governing board, executive team, and our viewing and listening audience. We're proud to have you out there taking an interest in the work that we do on behalf of our students and our family and communities. And tonight we're excited because we're resuming what we had planned but we planned 2 weeks ago, and we had some audio difficulties that we could not manage at that point. And so we had to ask Mr. Brammer, Rick Brammer, who's here tonight from Applied Economics, who will be sharing with us information about our enrollment analysis and our Tempe Union High School District demographics in our boundary areas. We're fortunate to have Rick's presence here along with his extensive history and data for our district, I think spanning over 20, 25 years. So there's a lot of information that he's able to share with us. And with that, and I want to be also remind everyone that Brammer, Rick and his company does work for Kyrene and Tempe Elementary as well. So it's nice to see that unified or systemic approach to all three of our districts as we unite and make decisions that benefit all of our students that we share among the three districts. So Rick, welcome to Tempe Union, and thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. President Garcia, Vice President Barraza, members of the board, Dr. Mendeville, all guests and folks at home viewing in, thank you for having me here tonight to share the results of our update again for this year. It has been actually a couple of years. And let's see. Do I have it on?
I think it's the arrow, though.
There we go. Thank you very much. So because I haven't done this presentation for a few years, I'm going to spend just a little extra time going over what we do since there's a few new people in the room. So obviously we're studying enrollment trends, and we're looking at total enrollment, but we're also looking at the distribution of enrollment by grade level and grade cohort. And as Dr. Mendeville said, we're looking at that all the way K-12, even though we're a high school district, because that's important. We're also looking at the geographic distribution of students. Where in the district are they coming from? And that helps us identify the patterns of the neighborhoods within the district, because the whole district is not at the same place in its evolution at the same time. And so that gives us some important insight into where we might be heading in the future. And then now we have to look at it and account for the alternative providers that are offering services within the district. Mostly charter schools have been the big growth, but there are, in this community, at least a few significant private schools as well. Obviously, then we're looking at demographic characteristics of the population. With population itself, mostly age, the age distribution. But when it comes to householders, though, who's in head of the household? How old are they? Are they owners versus renters? Those are all important factors that we like to take into account. And again, figuring out what student generation is likely to look like. And then obviously the housing supply and occupancy rates. What type of housing do we have? Are they all full? They're all empty? Spoiler alert, they're all full right now. So we've been through periods where they weren't, but that certainly isn't the case right now. And then we do look at residential development impacts, even though it hasn't been a major factor driving district enrollment, very recently, but we certainly need to account for it because where it's impactful, it's very impactful. So we definitely do keep track of that. And then we do two sets of enrollment projections. There's a macroeconomic top-down, how does the district fit into the Southeast Valley, into Maricopa County, into the state of Arizona, in terms of where are the overall demographics heading in particular. And we're going to see a lot of evidence of some of what that's happening there later on. And then a bottom-up sub-district model that uses this grid geography. So these little these little red squares that are used to divide up the district are a quarter square mile each. So every square mile is divided into 4 pieces. And even though I've been here doing this for about 25 years, this map predates me, except for the area west of 19th Avenue, which was added to the district significantly later. And the cool thing about that is this fabric of planning areas doesn't change. Doesn't change with attendance areas, doesn't change when schools come and go even. So it gives us a really good apples and apples way to evaluate the distribution of students and how that generation of students at the neighborhood level compares to the demographics and the housing at each one of those levels. So this is really kind of the basis for doing accurate small area projections and even school projections, is to understand that it's not all the same, and so we're working from the bottom up. All that said, starting back at the top, this chart shows us the 40th day head count enrollment from each of the years going clear back to 2000, 2001. The blue segment of the bars is the in-district enrollment, and the green segment of the bars are out-of-district enrollment. And you can see that the in-district, the blue bars, actually peaked clear back in 2015-16. So we're talking, almost 16 years ago here. It trended downward by 1,000 students to about 2009-10, mostly due to the recession, when those occupancy rates were falling. There were a lot of empty houses and so on and so forth. And it actually even rebounded then one year before starting down again by another 850 students, in the last several years, mostly driven by competition, but in the last 3 or 4 years, now being driven by smaller incoming class sizes as well. So it's not purely just the competition that's starting to catch up with us. Unlike the in-district, which peaked in 2005, total enrollment didn't peak until 2013-14. And as we're going to see, that's because the green part of this bar is getting bigger and was getting bigger and bigger during that time. We were bringing in more and more students from outside the district. But even in terms of total enrollment, that hasn't kept up with the in-district declines, at least not in the last few years. And so now we're down in total by about 900 students from peak enrollment back in 2013-14. And if you look at that out-of-district component we were just talking about, where it peaked back in 2017-18, and you can see the, sort of the meteoric rise of sorts up until that point, at least. It surprised me, the number of students that were attracted to the district during that time period, which I think is a credit to you and your schools and the programs and the facilities that you have to offer. Had a little bit of an adjustment in 2018-19 when we started seeing some of the districts who had been sending kids here, willingly or not, doing a little better job and trying to make a bigger effort of trying to hang on to their own students. And so had a little bit of a drop in 18-19, another one last year, one student this year. So it's almost stabilized for this year. But as we will see when you look at where those kids are coming from, I think that we'll probably have a decline in that, continue to have a decline in that group. So the map is just kind of a pretty thing. We actually do assign X and Y coordinates to all the students, so we know exactly where they all come from, whether they're in the district or not. And then the table down below shows you, well, for this year by grade, how many students came from each of the areas being, the top one being your district, the Tempe Union High School district, and then working your way down the list in sorted order of where you get, those 2,700 out-of-district students, where do they actually come from? And so you can see almost half of them come from the Phoenix Union High School area, and then another 460 from Mesa, Mesa has always been about that level, but it actually surpassed Maricopa this year. Up until this year, Maricopa had been a larger influence than Mesa. And as we see the Maricopa population grow and sort of their connection, their historical connection to the Southeast Valley kind of diminish, and then the quality of their schools, increasing, there's reason to believe that, that's probably going to continue, coupled with the fact that, as we will see, there's going to be fewer kids out there in total anyway. But if you just look at this last period since out-of-district enrollment declined, so 714 lost in that period, just over half of that, 386 from within the district, and the rest from outside the district. But since the in-district component is 4 times the size of the out-of-district, the percentage loss from out-of-district was actually much greater. And you think about only losing, 400 students over 4 years on a base of 10,000, it adds up in dollars and cents on the budgets, but it's not like enrollment's cratering in some way, or that the population is, really, really headed downward that way. One of the things that's been driving us is what's coming up from the lower grades. And what this chart does is it takes the enrollment in the K4, 5, 8, and 9, 12 groups or cohorts, we call them, and divides it by the number of grades. So you get the average enrollment per grade in each group. And as you can see, when you go back to 2000, that the K4 and 5-8 groups were significantly larger than the high school group. And if you look really close, you'll see the K4 is even bigger than the 5-8. And if you rolled this chart back another decade, which we can, you see that the K4 was by far the largest. And that's kind of the pattern that areas go through as they develop, as they bring in young families and young students in the beginning, and then as it starts to slow, it begins to age. And so you can see that the elementary enrollment, if you sort of add those together, you can see it's basically been in decline for about 15 years. Even though the 9-12 group, continued to grow, all the way through 13-14, as we said, but even stabilized through 2017-18 in terms of the totals until we saw that dip in 18-19. The interesting thing, or one of the things that we want to think about going forward, is that right now those lines have crossed. And you've got the 5-8 group is again bigger than the K4 group, and these lines follow each other. So that bump right there is what drove that bump right there. And so if this went down after that point, what do we think is going to happen to the 5-8 group next? And that pattern is going to repeat itself. It was exacerbated terribly this year by the impacts of COVID, which, if you've been following the news and stuff, 38,000 missing kids. The vast majority of those kindergartners and preschoolers and maybe first graders. So that really brought those two curves down this year artificially. And one of the things that's really exciting about my job this year is trying with everybody else to figure out how many of them are going to come back next year and what grades they're going to want to be in and what schools they're going to want to go to. So my crystal ball is a little fuzzier than it sometimes is this year, and we're all kind of in the same position on that. But the fact of the matter is these curves do chase each other a bit. The separation between them that you have now is very standard in what I would call a move-up housing market. So, those older grades will probably continue to have more students in them per grade than the younger ones, because people will move in with kids as they are able to, and can afford to move into the district. But we're going to have to really watch what happens with these elementary groups next year. I mean, that's going to tell us a lot about what our future is going to look like as well. Okay, so we talked about looking at sub-district stuff. And this is just this year's enrollment count measured in terms of students coming out of each one of those planning areas or grids. And this is your students. This isn't school-age population. These are actually the count of students enrolled in your schools. And it's, blue is where there's under 25 and et cetera, up to red where there's more than 100 students coming out of those grids. And so we have some pockets of higher density for sure, But a lot of the district has also become fairly, low to moderate density in terms of enrollment. And we'll see later, your population per household has fallen like to 2.3, 2.4, which for an area that has as much suburban development in it as you do, is really pretty striking. We can also, the most useful part of this data, for me at least, is looking at how that has changed over time. And so here we can see, colored in the squares, where blue is a loss and red is a gain, the enrollment change by grid over the last 5 years, including this one, which was a little bit, lower maybe than it would have been, but not much. The projection really wasn't, for you guys, wasn't really off that far. And if you read the articles in the newspaper, high school enrollment statewide wasn't really affected, all of that much. But it still shows some pretty significant areas of decline over the last 5 years. What happens mostly is that suburban development peaks in enrollment soon after it's built. And it takes about 30 years for it to go from its peak to its minimum. And so because the district has developed over a more like a 50 or 60 year period, we have some areas that have gone through that already and some that are still very much experiencing it. So the newer parts of Mountain Park Ranch, the foothills, and then the corners over in the Corona area also are still in that area, in that period where they're declining. But interestingly, we're starting to see pockets pop up in the Corona area, and that's actually what I meant to say. And then the Marcos areas where we're actually seeing, some grids where we're getting students back in. And we keep looking for that to happen because eventually these housing units will turn over. And it'll never skyrocket like it did when they were built. But it's possible for individual areas to go through, moderate increases. However, that's not what we're dealing with, because if I look this now, since recall the in-district enrollment, which is all we're really talking about, peaked in 2005. And so this map is actually showing us the loss of 1,850 students on a geographic basis over the last 15 years. And you can really see in Corona and Mountain Point and Desert Vista, those dark blue areas where individual grids have lost 60, 70, 80 students. Multiply that by 4, you're talking 200 or 300 students per square mile in that decline. There are areas that are red. A lot of that was built later. It was multifamily and doesn't generate a lot of kids, but it was an increase over what was there before. But we also do see, even in this time period, up in McClintock, it's not a big student population, but it seems to be stable. We've got a mix of grids that are up and a mix of grids that are down, whereas in the southern part of the district, the newer developing part, it's been mostly down. Out west of 19th Avenue, you see the bigger increases where we've actually been able to build, some new houses during this period. The other thing, of course, that's, one of the things that's really influencing the enrollment numbers, particularly in this decade, has been the charter school growth. And so this is a list of the alternative providers that we have that are operating in the district. These charters, there's 13 of them, which is actually somewhat of a decline. But you can see this year is an anomaly a bit maybe because of COVID, but overall, between 2010 and say 2019, they added over 2,000 students. So in fact, even though the Tempe Union High School District enrollment fell during that time, it also suggests that the population is more stable. However, what we don't know, and what the data we don't have, is you're a centrally located, high accessibility area. So we know that not all of these kids are in these schools are yours. There's plenty that come from, down in Maricopa and wherever else. It's just that in terms of its impact, we know that whatever the impact is, because we don't have the information to know exactly which students came from which areas in charter schools. But overall, you can see the impact is basically doubled during the period, whatever it was. So that definitely has been, offsetting any population increases that we might have had coming out of the recovery from the recession. And and then there's private schools that service about another 1,300 students. Most of them, from what I can tell, experienced a little bit of a blip up this year, but in all, they've been declining over the years pretty much like you have because of the competition with charter schools. So private schools technically aren't usually as big of a factor, at least in terms of the change in enrollment. And this map just shows where they are. So all the red dots are charter schools that offer high school grades. And of course, the green are the private schools, and the blue are the district schools. And so it's interesting there, that you kind of have to look for the blue dots to some extent. So there are quite a few options out there for people, particularly in the northern part of the district. The population characteristics, we talked about what's happening. You could see that between 2000 and 2010, the population of the district actually only went up by 1,800 people, even though there was 10,000 housing units built. And that's because there was only 5,600 households added. There was so much vacancy that they added all these housing units, and population, even total population, only went up by 1,800 people. So in this decade, we've added another 13,000 housing units, and the occupancy rate has gone way up. So we've now added another 11,900 households, and with all of that, the school-age population has fallen. I mean, in the 14 to 17 age group, you'll see there is only down slightly compared to, say, the under 5 and the 5 to 13 groups. But of course, this works its way forward. And so what we see is that the share of the population under 18 over the last 20 years has fallen by a third, from about 24% to about 18.8% of total population. You can kind of see by looking across those, that rate of decline has been fairly steady, but the majority of the decline has come from the under 5 group, or 6.8%, 5.6%, 4.8%. And so it really hasn't hit you in the way that it has hit the elementary schools yet. Unfortunately, because of the way the grades move forward and with absence of any large, housing growth, it means continued, declines in district enrollment. And most of those are being driven by this, that there's two age groups, particularly for high schools, that really drive the number of school-aged persons that are living in the district. It's those householders in the 35 to 44 and 45 to 54 categories. And similar to then the populations, they have, fallen from 45% to 36%. So we know we have an aging community, and if you look over in the far right column towards the bottom, you'll see that in this decade at least, by far the fastest growing cohorts are 55 and up, 55 to 64, 65 to 74, and 75 and up. Now, of course, that can't go on forever, and that's why we do talk about, regeneration a little bit at some point. But the fact is that regeneration happens very slowly compared to, say, new construction. So we have to watch that factor as we go forward. We talked about the impact of, or I mentioned it maybe, of birth rate declines. This is not an Arizona phenomenon, this is a national phenomenon. During the recession, between 2006 and 2011, Arizona birth rates dropped by 19.2%, which at that time was the lowest level on record. Because there was very little population growth during that time, the total number of births per year fell by 17%. And what I do, at least for the, what my starting point is, you can see that line down at the bottom that says kindergarten. So you add 5 years to those dates, and that's when those kids essentially will get to kindergarten. And then if I can add it, again, and stretch it out to 9th grade and put several more years on there. And what it means is that the birth rate is going to be declining. It has an impact, a negative impact on 9th grade through at least 2034 that we know of right now. So this is not a short-term problem. Anyway, after that big dip during the recession, you can see we had 3 or 4 years where the birth rate kind of stabilized. And every time in American history after a recession, when birth rates typically do fall, there's been a boom, a little bit of a, I waited and now I'm going to have, and exactly the opposite has happened, where we're down another 16.5%. And even accounting for the population growth that we're having, we're down almost 12% in the number of births. Now, by the time those kids get to fifth grade or ninth grade, or I'm sorry, first grade or ninth grade, more will have moved in from outside of the, outside of the state. So it won't really be that big of a hit. But the fact of the matter is the pot is not getting bigger. The pot is getting smaller, even with the growth that we're having in our state. We did talk about, or do look at least at construction activity. There's been about 12,000 housing units built in the last 10 years. So you think about how enrollment has been falling, and the fact that there's been 12,000 housing units built was a real disconnect for me. When I first started learning this job, I assumed that every time you built a house, there was going to be some positive impact on enrollment. And it turns out when you get into an established area, that's not so much the case. But one of the reasons why this has been the case is that 90% of those 12,000 units have been multifamily, and a fairly large percentage of those have not been of the type that it has been marketed to families. It's been students up north, and it's been empty nesters and yuppies, kind of down here in the south. So it really hasn't had any speakable enrollment impact. We have whole apartment complexes with hundreds of units where we get no students. So you can't assume just because you see a construction crane that there's going to be more kids. And of course, the single family has been limited so much just because there isn't any land. There isn't land to build it. Short of the Bradford Homes project, which is on your old high school site out there, about 7th Street or so, where they're building houses like gangbusters right now, but so much so they'll build it out in a single year, or maybe two. But in terms of the development potential then going forward, we have identified development potential. That means projects and parcels that we know about that have plans on them of some sort for about another 13,000 housing units. That would represent about a 10% increase in the total housing inventory of the district. Unfortunately, it would only be a 2.1% increase in the single-family housing inventory of the district. So again, in terms of the components that are really going to drive school-age population, it's not a 10% more, it's a 2% more. So we got to just kind of keep that in mind. Although these projects, some of them will definitely generate kids, especially as the projects age and perhaps the rental rates begin to decline. In terms of a map, and I know you all can't read this, but we use these standard planning colors. So there's polygons colored on this map. The light yellow ones are single-family development. Orange ones are multifamily. Red ones are commercial, et cetera. That's kind of hard to see, I understand. But up north, obviously around the university, we've got a lot of orange, where we've got a lot of new multifamily going in, but that's not exclusively where it's been. I mean, we've also seen a fair amount come to the Chandler Boulevard corridor in the last few years, too. And of course, the big thing that we're all kind of been waiting for, me for about 15 years, is the development of the state trust land out at 19th Avenue. So by far the biggest yellow piece you see on the map here is that land. And it goes to auction May 26th. Minimum bid's about $200 million. I expect it will be sold. Probably I won't speculate. But anyway, I suspect that it will be sold. And the agreement that the State Lands Department made 10 years ago with the city of Phoenix was to limit the density to 1,050 single family and about 350 multifamily. 1,400 units was the agreement. Now, the builder might be able to go back to City of Phoenix and say, we don't want to build any apartments. I'd like to build 1,400 single-family houses. That could definitely happen. But I don't see the total number of units going up much because that agreement has been in place and was arrived at by consternation with the neighbors. And, there was a lot that went into establishing that number. When this parcel originally came along, you see everything north of what will be the Chandler Boulevard alignment is green. That's because the city of Phoenix bought it all for a new park and library and fire station out there. But originally, that whole square was yellow. So originally, we were thinking this was going to be 2,000 or 3,000 housing units. So actually, 1,400, it's going to make an impact, but it's, you know, with our enrollments in decline a little bit the way they are, we're actually making the space for these kids. So it's really, it's really kind of a good thing. In terms of the projections, we expect, you know, about 11,500 or so of those 13,000 housing units that are in potential to be built in the next 10 years. Pretty much all of the single family. That project we were just talking about, it's going to take a good 2 to 3 years to actually get any infrastructure in and get roads in and be able to start, you know, building and selling houses. But you see that ramping up there in about 24, 25, when we'll get that, that's that run. That's those houses, you know, basically coming onto the market. And by the end of the projection period, our prediction is anyway, they will be virtually all built or all built. But what it really does is it drives then for me, with the occupancy rate, the households. A household is just an occupied housing unit. And even though I'm only showing the totals here, in my model, I structure it and stratify it by those categories that you saw in that other slide. So 25 to 34, 35 to 44. And that's what I use on this next slide to come up with an estimate of what the school-age population is. The school-age population is all persons in the district, age 14 to 17 in your case, whether they go to your school or any school. And I will say the 2010 number is a census number, the 15,085. That is the last hard number that we actually have. From there forward, they are our estimates based on the modeling that we do of the cohorts and the households. And data that we get from something the census does. It's called the American Community Survey. And it's done annually, but it's a really small sample, so the error rates tend to be, you know, kind of ridiculous, but it's something for us to look at and confirm at least that what we're seeing and what we're modeling is, you know, close to reality. So you really don't see, you know, in these numbers, you know, a big loss in school-age population. It's been a distribution thing for the most part. So, you know, 15,000 down to 14,800. And then the second set of columns is your actual in-district enrollment. Not the total, just the in-district component. And the difference between them is essentially the students that you're not serving from inside the district. So that number is currently standing at 4,264. Remember that we bring in 2,700 though from outside, so we're actually, you know, net down about 1,600. But in terms of the in-district, I call it a service rate. So what share of the in-district school-age population are you serving? And this year that fell to 71, but that's a little bit lower than I think that's a little artificially low because of COVID. But you can see back in 2000, before the charters really grew, it was 80%. You can also see, though, the last 2 or 3 years, as charter schools enrollment has kind of peaked, that your capture rate has, or service rate, I should say, has really stabilized. And so it's the only really unknown that I have going forward. With our work, we're very good at how many housing units there's going to be and what the school-age population is going to be. The big question mark for us is always that service rate. How many kids, you know, are going to choose you? And so in my projections here, I've only built in a slight decline, the type of decline that we've seen the last 3 or 4 years, not the decline we've seen the last 10 years. Because in my opinion, saturation is catching up with charter schools in this district, and it's part of it is because the school-age population isn't growing. They aren't attracted here. They know some version of these numbers too. So I'm only having it drop off by a couple of percentage points over the entire 10-year period. Could be more, could be less. That is the biggest unknown in all of this. But assuming this is correct, then in-district enrollment would fall by about 770 students over the next 10 years. That's kind of the bottom line. And getting back to our squiggly line world, what we're assuming is that there is a bounce back next year. You can see in the K4 and the 5-8 groups. However, especially in the 5-8 group, I'm not thinking it's everybody. because my experience has been that once students try an alternative provider and they get established, or they like a teacher or a principal or anything, they don't come back. So, it's a very good chance that won't rebound as much as the K-4 group will. But that's really the biggest question mark, other than the service rate and the whole thing. But what it leads you to is essentially that green line, which is that we continue to have, a slightly declining school-age population, high school-age population in the district. So then the question becomes, okay, well, what about this outside component? And looking at the age distributions of the school-age population distribution of the districts around you and what they're doing, I'm, forced to conclude that we're going to continue to have a slight decline in out-of-district, although, again, this is a pretty big, variable. Things can happen to shift it either way. But this shows about another 440 student decline from out-of-district, giving you a total decline over the next 10 years of about 1,200 students. And that's kind of the bottom line. So looking at the sub-district level stuff, we have some good informational stuff that we've tracked over the years to help us understand enrollment patterns and performances of schools and things like that. But this is kind of an interesting chart where the top third of it shows you enrollment by grade in attendance areas. In other words, by where kids live only. And because of that, it actually has that out-of-district category, because some 2,694 kids live outside the district. It's also your biggest attendance area. Your biggest single attendance area is kids from out of the district. The bottom third of that table is the actual enrollment by school this year. And so that whole middle part is calculated based on the difference between the two. And what it shows is that overall, Tempe High School loses 100 students. There's 100 more students that live there than go to school there. All the movement. And this year, McClintock was 600 more going there than lived there. And so we really do have to watch these ebbs and flows, because in terms of staffing and so forth, this is a major deal. This isn't just a few kids here and there. This is hundreds of kids. And so I'm not going to dwell on it too much. We obviously had more noise in the system this year because of Tempe Online. So we had more parent movement, and so it actually made this chart a little bit more exaggerated, maybe, than it has been in the past. But it's just generally good information. The one that, kind of my favorite is kind of the crosstab of that. So this chart shows you the cross flow of students. So if you read it across, you can see where the kids from Tempe High School live. 969 of them live in their own attendance area, 60 live in McClintock, 69 at Marcos, et cetera, over to 425 from out of district, giving them a total attendance, kids in the seats, 1,584. If you read that column down, you see that 1,685 that we were talking about, and so there's 100 difference. But the real purpose of this chart is to see that decision-making that's going on with kids from which attendance areas deciding to attend which other attendance areas. And you can see there's ebb and flow between virtually every combination of schools. So, and some of them are, much larger than others, but that student movement is obviously, it's a good thing, it's choice. I mean, we're trying to get people in places that they're comfortable and keep them in the district, but it does make our job of planning a bit more difficult. I added something this year, this down below, this last part of this table where it says reside 1920. I wanted to show you, because of the differences this year, maybe due to COVID, how many kids came out of those attendance areas last year, if you're reading it down. So again, Tempe High School had 1,685 living in its attendance area this year, 1,706 last year. So it was only down by 21 students, or 1.2%. But you can see McClintock and Mountain Point were both down by over 4%. And so one of the things I used this information for is going forward in the projections, I made the assumption that if the loss was exaggerated in an area, that's more likely where the kids will come back. And that may or may not turn out to be true, but I couldn't put them back in evenly because they didn't come out evenly. So again, it made it a little bit of an extra challenge. Overall, there's about 70% of the kids who attend their designated school. So that's that 70.8% you see at the end of the green row. So, and that's a little bit lower than most. I mean, a little bit more movement. Paradise Valley, though, is right in that category, and so is Scottsdale. So it's not unusual. People like choice these days. And ultimately, then we combine the student data, the development data, the demographic data into enrollment projections. And in the report, whoops, I got ahead of myself. In the report, there's more detailed discussion of this and some analysis, at least, of the numbers. But blue just means it's smaller than the average. Red means it's bigger than the average. If it's getting bluer, it's getting smaller. If it's getting redder, it's getting bigger. Just kind of a way to see what the numbers are trying to tell us. And again, the top half is based on the attendance areas, including out of district. You see that assumption for them going forward. And then the bottom half is by school, where we try to take into account all this cross flow and use basically a matrix type operation to translate attendance area in the projections into school in the projections. And the little chart down below, I understand it's awfully small, but the biggest decline this year, the one that surprised me the most was Desert Vista, given the fact that out-of-district enrollment only fell by one student, because that's kind of been their niche, and that wasn't really where that decline came from this year. I am expecting it to rebound based on the 8th grade data that I see coming. So we'll see if those kids stay in the queue for us. But I do see that rebounding over time. And of course, that's where we're going to have the growth eventually from the housing. Although, because that'll attract somewhat younger families, the real impact for that from that new single-family housing west of 19th Avenue isn't in these projections yet. It really is sliding beyond this projection window before we're really going to see that impact. Anywho, and then we had the Tempe Union Online line this year, which I put back to 0 and put everybody back where they went. That's the approach that we used in the projections. And Lord willing, that's what will happen. So overall, the in-district enrollment has been really declining fairly slowly. We saw the school-age population has been declining fairly slowly. We can't seem to make it increase, but it is declining, as is now out-of-district enrollment. And that's what's really caused us to kind of tip over the edge. We see those current declines in K-8 enrollment, and what goes around comes around, but it's going to get to you eventually, although, as I said before, you're a move-up housing market. So you can't strictly look at the number of 5-year-olds and imagine those as 9th graders. That doesn't work either. In some areas, you have an attrition all the way along, but not in yours. The housing turnover rates, I keep talking about these neighborhoods of Washington turnover, very, very, very anxious for 2020 census data. Because the data I get from the American Community Survey is only good at the district level. I want to know what's going on, in each one of the boxes. So I'm really anxious to see if we see neighborhoods where those upper age groups, the 65 to 75 and 75s or over, are starting to peak. And that's the thing I'm looking for, is I'm looking for those populations to start to dip, because then I know the other population's going to come up behind it. And really haven't seen it in a whole lot of places up till now. We saw the single-family development is limited. We do have the one pot, but of potential growth. But lots of multifamily, and the multifamily that we get just generally doesn't produce kids. And because of all of that, I just I'm not looking for enrollment to crater in any sort of way, but I just don't see there's any way it could possibly really increase either in the projection period. And because there's 4,200 kids, though, living in the district that you're not serving, there's always the possibility, you know, that you could get some of those back too. And so it's not solely driven by the demographics. You still got to keep your eye on marketing and still keep reaching out and try to bring in the kids that are actually already out there. So I appreciate your patience, and I'll take any questions.
All right. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for being here and presenting. This is very, very helpful information for us when it comes to decision making and considering for our families and students, but also thank you for coming back after we had a little issue last time. So board members, we have about 10 minutes for questions. I know that's a little tight, but we do have our regular meeting to get to. So
I apologize.
Yes. Who would like to go first? Board member Hodge?
First off, thank you. It's always a pleasure to see you over the years, so thank you. It's always a great presentation when you come.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. I just have, because I know our board member is going to go over majority of what I'm going to, what I have questions, but I just have one question. With the freeway coming from Pecos, have we thought about how much of those kids we're predicting to maybe get from the new freeway coming in from the Desert Vista area to Mountain Point area with the 202 extension?
Yeah, we are. We are tracking that. And unfortunately, this year we saw generally less movement. Like, you wouldn't go out of district to a school you couldn't go to anyway. So we didn't really get the impact of the freeway yet. However, if you look at that one chart on page 6, you'll see that, for instance, we got 31 students from the Tolleson Union High School District this year versus only 18, 16, 19 in prior years. So I do believe that is going to have an impact. We just, again, something we're going to have to monitor. We would have known more about this year if not for COVID.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Board member Montero?
First of all, thank you for your presentation and coming back. A quick question on slide 20 when we're talking about the enrollment projections. It looks like, the elementary grade enrollment seems to have a much steeper decline for this year. And so my question to you is, do you expect that to have, what will that impact look like on us moving forward? Because I know, like you said, as these students, for whatever reason leave, for many reasons they might not come back. And so do you expect that to have, an adverse impact on our enrollment moving forward, or do you not think so?
I don't think so. I mean, I really don't. I think we're going to basically return to the curve. I am concerned that there could be a, like at the certainly at the 5-8 level, we'll see if some of those kids, I'm watching that group more closely because I think they're more likely to stay away. But in the past, that hasn't necessarily correlated to not coming to high school. So you've done very well at recovering kids, if you will, between 8th and 9th grade historically. So it is something, it's important, and we're going to watch it. But I am looking for those to rebound.
Vice President Perez?
Rick, thank you for your presentation and being very thorough and covering a lot for us. I always enjoy when you come in and give us this information. Growing up in the community, it's also fascinating to see where we're at in terms of the growth and historically where we were. So I really appreciate all that information. It's very thorough. Ultimately, I'm just curious, in the end, recruitment's always going to be the mechanism that we can pull students in. What numbers are we looking for annually in terms of recruitment into our district that would satisfy any marginal decreases? Since we're declining steadily, would let's say 50 students a year be
The
too
average
much,
would
too
be
little?
about 120.
Okay, so just to kind of give me wrapped around my head,
Kind of a mental
if we were
target.
wanting to dip, if we were wanting to go upward, on an
Right.
upward trajectory, how many students would that be? And does the Airbnb and investment rentals affect what we're looking at in terms of our dynamics? Because I know a lot of houses are being currently, it's all the talk, that the market houses just go on sale and sold within 2 days, and it's largely, there's a large amount of out-of-state investors. Does that affect how we're looking at it? As well as the new developments for what you're saying, the aging population, ASU has the new facilities, which is really cool. That's 55 and plus only. Does that impact our numbers, and is it material, those developments? Okay.
Not really. The percentages are just really too small
Okay, I appreciate that.
to have a huge impact. It could have some. And again, district-wide, probably hardly measurable. In this community, might be significant.
I see.
So that's another reason why we keep doing that detailed work.
I agree. Thank you. I appreciate it, Rick.
Member James?
Thank you so much. Your presentation is excellent and easy to start geeking out over, so appreciate it. I'm looking at the decline of enrollment. You said about 770 students over the next 10 years.
In district, yeah.
In district, right. Do you kind of dive into the whereabouts those 770 are declining, like per school enrollment? Like, are you going to see more decline at Tempe High or Mount, like which schools are going to see the most decline?
Right, and that's what this is trying to get to. It's just that at the scale I'm showing you, the numbers, the lines all kind of look the same.
Right, okay.
But that really does give you those numbers, and I could certainly provide you with a better table, maybe, or
Right.
a better chart that would actually, so you could see those figures. I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And also, if we're able to break that out even more similar to the cross flow, because I think that would be interesting to see the decline in addition to the incorporated into that cross flow, to see where exactly pinpoint what those look at like for us. So
Okay.
that is all I have. Board members, do you have any other questions? Board member Montero?
Yeah, this might be even a question for Dr. Mendeville. When we're talking about, the steady increase in the enrollment where charters or private schools, do we have any data on, the numbers and the difference of those that might have, that are in district and maybe never entertain the idea of enrolling in our schools compared to those that may have enrolled in our schools for a year or two and, unenrolled and went to those charter schools? Do we know the difference between those two groups?
I don't have the churn, kind of you're looking for. I know the net is 4,200. There's 4,200 more, students living in the district than you're currently serving in the district. But as far as who's in and out, we just don't have that level of information.
What I can respond to Board Member Montero is that I know where we see the higher number of charters that have high schools, that's the issue. There's a lot of charters, or more charters, with K-8 systems versus the high school. And so oftentimes, especially with the private, they've already attended K through 8, and they're going to continue in that manner through 9 through 12. And prior years at Desert Vista, as an example, with basis of Ahwatukee and some of those schools that are there for charter, they kind of go back and forth depending on priorities of the family, because we get basis kids that re-enroll with us. And I know that Desert Vista has monitored that over the years, so it's something we might look into a little bit more closely, but that's a good point.
Board members, do you have any other questions? All right, hearing none, seeing none, that concludes our study session. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time and talent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
All right. We will take a brief recess and reconvene at 7 p.m. Thank you, everyone. Good evening. Tempe Union continues to maintain social distancing for the safety of our community. The open meeting law permits a public body to hold a remote meeting through technological means and implement procedures designed to safeguard the public's access to the meeting. We are streaming this meeting live on the district's YouTube channel. Reconvene this meeting at 7:00 p.m. We will continue our meeting with Member Hodge leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence with Diane Newmans with the land acknowledgement. Thank you.
Tempe Union High School District acknowledges that our community of schools is located on the ancestral lands of the Akmel Autumn, Pima, and Peeposh Maricopa indigenous peoples who have inhabited these lands since time immemorial. With this land acknowledgement, the district formally recognizes that the traditional care and keeping of these lands by these indigenous peoples allows us to be here today.
Thank you so much, Ms. Newmans. All right, Dr. Mendeville.
Thank you, President Garcia, Vice President Barraza, members of the board, executive team who are present, and our listening and viewing audience. We appreciate you taking the time this evening to be with us. Because of COVID restrictions, we're not allowed to or able to have our students present, and that's really the most fun that we can honor and recognize our fabulous students. But we have some great news today, and we will be making a presentation. So I'm really excited to recognize the students from Tempe High and McClintock High School out loud. I think that recognition needs to be known for our avid students who have realized and secured scholarships through a lot of the hard work through the advisors, first with Brandon Thompson and Julie Duarte, Brandon Thompson at Tempe High and Julie Duarte from McClintock High School. And we have 28 students from Tempe High that we are going to honor this evening with a slideshow, and 7 from McClintock. And I'm just really excited, and I know that our governing board and everybody present in this room, and I hope you, if you're listening out in our audience, can give a nod of honor to these 20 or 35 graduates from AVID. We're just very, very proud of each and every one of them. Board Member Hodge, can you begin with the formal recognition?
Thank you. We'll start off with Anala Chavez. She's a ASU first generation presidential scholarship, $10,000 yearly. We have Brian Lopez Flores. He's also a ASU first generation Obama scholarship, $25,000 yearly. Jose Brentram, ASU first generation presidential scholarship, $10,000 yearly. And I want to make sure I say it right, but it's Asmari. Sorry, I'm so sorry, Costello. ASU Generation Dean Scholarship, $7,000 yearly. Ana Cadenas Cruz, first ASU Generation Obama Scholarship, $25,000 yearly. Diablos and Presidential Scholarship. Knowledge Calhoun, ASU, Obama Scholarship, $25,000 yearly. And Gabriella Peters, ASU First Generation, Obama Scholarship, $25,000 yearly.
Jessica Roman, University of Arizona First Generation, Wildcat Scholarship, $11,900, and Dell Scholar, $5,000 yearly. Denise Carrillo, ASU, Obama Scholarship, $25,000 yearly. Jiafeng Zhu, ASU, First Generation, Presidential Scholarship, $10,000 yearly. Andy Wen, ASU, First Generation, Obama Scholarship, $25,000 yearly. Angelica Aguilera, ASU, First Generation, Obama Scholarship, $25,000 yearly. Jose Guernica Navarro, ASU, First Generation, Obama Scholarship, $25,000 yearly. Sandra Arce Olmos, ASU, First Generation, Obama Scholarship, $25,000 yearly.
Hayden Harris, ASU, Dean's Scholarship, $7,000. Marisol Gomez Delgadillo, University of Arizona, First Generation, Wildcat Scholarship, $11,000. Randy Gutierrez de Larte, ASU, First Generation, Obama Scholarship, $25,000 yearly. Morgan Latham, ASU, Dean's Scholarship, $7,000, and Diallo Scholarship, $2,000. Carlos Torres Hernandez, GCU, First Generation, Dean and Presidential Scholarship, $6,000, and Dream Scholarship, $37,000. Julio Gutierrez Romualdo, ASU First Generation, College Attainment Grant, $3,000 yearly, New American Grant, $2,000 yearly. Norma Jose Garcia, ASU First Generation, College Attainment Grant, $3,000 yearly, New American Grant, $2,000 yearly.
Sergio Ponce, ASU, First Generation attending, Obama Scholarship, $25,000 yearly. I love stressing that, yearly, that's incredible. Abigail Reyes will be attending ASU, she's First Generation. She'll be attending with the Obama Scholarship for $25,000 yearly. Daniela Pinto, Daniela will be attending ASU. She has a College Attainment Grant of $3,000 yearly. Estefani Borjorquez will be attending ASU, is First Generation in her family, College Attainment Grant, $3,000 yearly, Dean Scholarship. Kobe Chafrang, I hope I pronounced that right, will be attending ASU and also First Generation with a New American $2,000 yearly. Carolina Rojas Felix will be attending Grand Canyon University, First Generation, Dean and President Scholarship of $6,000 and Dream Scholarship of $37,000. Gemma Rodriguez Cardenas is attending ASU. She is also a First Generation and will be attending with the Obama Scholarship of $25,000 yearly.
All right, next we have our McClintock Avid students. Raquel Villa, she'll be attending ASU as a First Generation college student. She got scholarships to NYU for $42,000, U of A Wildcat Excellence in $32,000, and ASU Provost Award $28,000. Congratulations, Raquel. Jocelyn Flor Aguilar, attending ASU, majoring in criminal justice, also First Generation student. ACE and dual enrollment student credit, so she's graduating with 60 plus college credits already, with scholarships to ASU with the New American University President's Award, $40,000, the Tempe Dollars for Scholars, $1,000, and Anything is Possible East Valley Women's League, $10,000. Congratulations, Jocelyn. Next we have Stephanie Martinez Ramos, attending ASU, majoring in communication with a pre-law focus, also First Generation student, and also an ACE and dual enrollment student graduating with over 60 credits, college credits, ready to go. Scholarships with ASU President's Award, $40,000 total. Tempe dollars for scholars, and the Yenny's Chapman Merrill Foundation, $1,000. And the Tempe Tardia Scholarship, $1,000, and she's also with Scholar. Congratulations, Stephanie. Next, we have Angel Rodriguez, attending ASU majoring in elementary education, also a first-generation student, plus dual enrollment, graduating with 3 extra college credits. Scholarships, NAU President's, $32,000, U of A Wildcat Excellence, $32,000, ASU Provost Award, $24,000, and dollars for scholars, $1,000. Congratulations, Anand. Next, we have Eric Rodriguez. He will be attending MCC, also first-generation college student, overcoming many challenges this year, and we're still waiting to hear back, but we're excited to see what comes. Congratulations, Eric. Next, we have Olaf Rosas Rios, attending ASU, majoring in environmental engineering as a first-generation student with the Dream Scholarship in $37,000 total. And then wrapping up is Jasmine Venegas, attending ASU, majoring in photography as a first-generation college student with scholarships to ASU with the Dean Scholarship, $20,000 total, NAU's Presidential Scholarship at $32,000, and the U of A Wildcat Excellence Award wrapping up at $32,000. Congratulations, Yasmin, and congratulations to all our graduates and award and scholarship recipients. We're really proud of you.
I echo the congratulations there. These are outstanding students involved in the AVID program, and for those of you who are listening at home, AVID stands for Advancement via Individual Determination, and clearly evident of the determination that these students have displayed through the time with their fearless leaders of Brandon Thompson at Tempe High and Julie Duarte. And this is also kind of incumbent upon the Teacher Appreciation Week as well, that we have teachers just like this who continue to go above and beyond the call of duty to advance our students with these kinds of opportunities, and the program of AVID has been that conduit for these young adults. And I'm just excited beyond words. It almost makes me tearful to realize the opportunities that these kids are going to be, these students, that young adults are going to be having in front of them. And I'd invite you all to come back at any point and share your success stories and the impact you're going to have in our community and our world. And I'm not sure who the elementary grad or student is from McClintock. I don't have it in front of me. But come and see us, because we want to make sure you get a job within the Tempe community system, all right?
Angel Rodriguez.
Okay, good. So thank you. I also want to recognize tonight, just a testament to our employees here in the district, when things get a little crazy and we have a challenge like we did last board meeting with our audio, we want to recognize Jordan Sarrett within the Tempe Union High School District IT department, and he oversees the Apple systems. He's one of the analysts. So we want to extend our thanks and appreciation to Jordan to helping us out last week at to help us to keep on going live streaming for our study session with audio. Were it not for Jordan finding the source of the problem and collaborating with our very special Warren Cole to create a workaround, we would have been forced to also cancel and reschedule our business meeting that night. And because of their great minds, far greater than mine, they were able to figure it out and quickly. So Jordan, thank you for all the behind the scenes work that you do for us. And Warren, we always appreciate your guidance and how you direct the streaming and make it happen. We just appreciate your professionalism. And lastly, I'm going to invite Mr. McDonald. We haven't had a COVID metric update in a while, and we were enjoying some of the metrics going in the heading to the moderate range, and it kind of took a little bit of a shift, and nothing that we can't handle. We have 2 weeks to the day to weather through this, and if we've gone this far, we can go 2 weeks. So, Mr. McDonald.
Thank you. Good evening, Governing Board President Garcia, Vice President Barraza, members, Superintendent Mendeville, executive team, and guests watching from home. As of last Thursday, the Tempe Union area metrics are in the higher area. And so if you remember, we start at low, moderate, substantial, and high. So currently, our district is the highest with 105 cases per 100,000 and percent positivity at about 7.02%. Along with that, Maricopa County is increasing as well. They're in the substantial range with 85 cases per 100,000 and percent positivity being about 5.3%. And both of those are expected to go up tomorrow as I give you the new metrics in the board briefing. High areas in our district include zip codes of 85281, and of course that's ASU, but surprisingly 282, 283, 041, 042, 048, 202, and 339. So 8 out of our 9 areas that we look at are in the high, where the other 11 are in the substantial range. Schools that happen to be in the high levels are currently Tempe, McClintock, Marcos, and Compadre, with Corona, Mountain Point, and DV being in the substantial range. Currently, the Arizona RNOT number, that's the transmission rate, is below 1 at 0.91, so that's good for us. And then also currently 41.5% of Arizona residents have received 1 or more doses of their COVID vaccination. So we're pleased with that number as that continues to go up on a weekly basis. I would, as Dr. Mendeville said, we have 2 weeks left, so please keep yourselves safe. We're looking forward to our graduation ceremonies. Again, we will be required to continue to use the mitigating behaviors and the mask and social distancing. And again, I will give you an update tomorrow, actually for Friday in the board briefing. Is there any questions?
I believe Board Member James has a question.
How many, do we have a number of how many kids are in quarantine currently, or what?
Yes, as of today, 8. I did it first thing. So we went up from 5, so we did have a few more, but all 8 students, all outside these schools.
And is that active cases or quarantined? Are we quarantining cohorts?
That's active cases at this point. We look at active cases. We have quarantined, but they're all back at this point.
Member Hodge?
This doesn't have to be right now, but can we have an update about how many students we had affected with COVID in our district in our next thing?
We could give you what we know for sure.
Yes, thank you.
Member Montero?
Oh, there we go. Thank you for the update. Just in terms of the vaccination numbers, I'm assuming, I don't know if this is out there, if we're able to get a better idea maybe of what those numbers might look like for our district specifically, but if not, do you know what the number looks like for the lower age group, so that's 16-ish, 16 to 18? Do we have any idea of the number of those that have been vaccinated?
We don't currently have that data. We will work with the nurses in figuring out what we're going to do to get that data. And then also, as we continue, the FDA may make a recommendation that goes down to 12 here shortly. So we're looking forward to that announcement as well.
All right. Thank you so much for the update.
Thank you.
Next, we will have public comment. Dr. Mendeville, do we have public comment?
Board President Garcia, yes, we do. We have, I believe, 16. I counted wrong then, so I'm sorry. We have 16 public comments, and I'm going to ask Dr. Wilson to take the mic.
This is the time for the public to comment. Members of the governing board may not discuss items that are not on the agenda. Action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter or scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date. Public comment concerning a specific agenda item is heard at the time that item is addressed by the governing board. The public meeting notice provides the method by which the public may submit comment and have their comment read into the record. Under Section C of Governing Board Policy BEDH, public participation at governing board meetings, When there are 16 to 30 requests to speak, public comment is limited to 2 minutes. 16 emails were received from 1 p.m. Monday until 3 p.m. today. They will be read at this time. Our first public comment is from Cheryl Waddell. What will be the Tempe Union, specifically Desert Vista's mask use policy at the start of the 2021-2022 school year be? Will the board allow parents as the primary educators of their children to be responsible for the individual decision per family? I move to allow each student, i.e. family, the civil liberty of my body, my choice on the basis of unlimited vaccines available, meaning masks may be recommended, not required. Thank you, Cheryl Waddell. Our next public comment is from Elita Dehan. I, Elita, am a former MHS student. I was a dance student in 2001-2002. That class and of Miss Kristen helped through some of the most difficult times of my life. From being a freshman in a new school, in a new state, to ultimately needing surgery for a personal matter. I enjoyed her class, as well as learning about the various styles of dance. To let go of this class is the worst mistake you or any school board could make. You're letting down students who only have this course and teacher who being so much meaning and care to their lives. Some students only come to school just for this class. This class or any class related to the performing arts gives students hope for the future, and it gives them something to aspire to later in life. When I was a student of Miss Kristen, I wanted to go on to attend Juilliard, or however it's spelled. Sadly, and my health later in life stopped me of completing that goal. Dance helped me and others express our pain, sadness, joy, happiness, and excitement all at once. You've made a huge mistake letting go of the dance course at McClintock High. Alita.
Dr. Mendeville, if we can look into that, please. Thank you.
Our next public comment is from Amy Pedoto. Dear board members and Superintendent Mendeville, thank you for allowing CDC guidelines and continuing to require masks at schools, and for your commitment to the health and safety of students and staff. It has been a long year filled with difficult decisions. Thank you for continuing to be guided by science. Sincerely, Amy Pedato, TUHSD parent. Our next public comment is from Troy Walker. Dear board members and Superintendent Mendeville, I would like to thank you for following CDC guidelines and continuing to require masks at schools, and for your commitment to the health and safety of students and staff. It has been a long year filled with difficult decisions. Thank you for continuing to be guided by science. Sincerely, Troy Walker, TUHSD parent. The next public comment is from Pam McCardle. Dear Dr. Mendeville, President Garcia, and board members, my name is Pamela McCardle, and I am a parent of students in both the Tempe Union High and Kyrene school districts. First, I would say a huge thank you to all of our staff who are working so hard to educate all our students in very difficult situations. My students' teachers have been awesome. It has been a difficult year, and they have persevered and not given up or let her give up either. My family and so many other families appreciate you and your dedication to our kids. Please know that we support you. I am grateful that our Tempe Union staff have had the opportunity to get vaccinated, and hope that soon our 12 to 15-year-old students will be able to do as well. However, there are still students and staff getting exposed on a daily basis. I would like to finish the year with the current mask requirements. We are so close to wrapping up this 2020-21 year. Let's end on a safe note. Thank you for your hard work as board members. I appreciate your work keeping our students and staff safe. Pamela McCardle. Our next public comment is from Monica Gelman. Board members and district staff, I am a parent of 2 DV students and writing to thank you for keeping mitigation strategies such as masks in place for the rest of the school year. These strategies were announced before school started and reiterated multiple times throughout the school year. Every family who chose in-person learning was required to sign an acknowledgement regarding masks, quarantines, staying home when sick, etc. Families promised to follow those rules. It is essentially a compact. In addition, many families based their decision to return to in-person learning, or not, based upon the agreed upon and publicly announced mitigation strategies. To change that now would be a lack of fidelity. I need not remind you of the CDC's stance on masks in schools, as well as the fact numbers have climbed steadily for 4 weeks. A positive case translates to more students in quarantine whose education has been disrupted. My daughters are in person, and I'd like it to stay that way, especially with finals coming up. Keeping the mitigation strategies allows us to finish this difficult school year strong. Monica Gelman. Our next public comment is from Danielle Paulette. Good evening, governing board members and Dr. Mendeville. Thank you for keeping masks and mitigation strategies in place. Asynchronous Wednesdays are necessary to ensure equity for students learning virtually and need to remain until the end of the 2020-2021 school year. My sons both attend Mountain Point in person and enjoy the time they get on Wednesdays to go over their work or prepare for their next assignments. The fact that their teachers need to use this time to catch up with virtual students does not impact them at all. We are definitely appreciative of all the hard work our educators have done this school year. They deserve much more than Teacher Appreciation Week for their efforts. Danielle Paulette. Our next public comment is from Christina Allen. To whom it may concern. We are Joseph and Christina Allen, and our 3 students attend McClintock High School. We make masks optional for students. Please make masks optional for students. The governor has lifted the mandate, and it's time to allow our kids to enjoy smiling at friends, hearing teachers speak clearly, and having a choice. Our kids should have the option to wear a mask or not. Please get behind parents, show our kids some much needed attention, and make this optional. There is no reason to wait until school starts again in the fall. Sincerely, the Allens. Our next public comment is from Heidi Sauer, a parent at Desert Vista. Hello, board and administration. Respectfully, I ask to receive a response to my current and prior questions regarding making masks optional in our schools. This is an important issue directly impacting our students, and parents have a right to be heard and responded to on this topic. Many of our neighboring districts, including the largest, Mesa Public Schools with almost 100,000 students, staff, Queen Creek, Evett, Legacy, Apache Junction, etc., following Governor Ducey lifting the mask mandate, have made masks optional in schools with no adverse impact. There are a large number of Tempe Union families who would like to have the same right to choose regarding masks. At a minimum, students should be allowed the option to remove their mask once seated in their classroom, the same as our entire community has done this past year, once seated in a restaurant. Parents know what is best for their own kids, and TUHSD should honor that by providing parent choice for their students regarding mask use. Thank you, Heidi Sauer. Our next public comment is from Rebecca Royalty. Dr. Mendeville and Tempe Union board members, I am a parent of a sophomore at Marcos Deniza. I want to express my gratitude to you for making it possible for the kids to have the option to attend school in person for the last quarter of this year. I am pleased that it is going well. I know my children are very pleased to be back in school. On another note, it seems like small gatherings with proper precautions are regularly taking place with minimal risk. Therefore, I would like to encourage the board to open the meetings to the public. I would also like to see summer school be held in person for anyone you would like to attend. My son will be taking summer school, but not for credit recovery. Like many students, in order to take all the classes he wants during the school year, he needs to take summer school. However, he feels like he and all the other kids who did well this year is being punished for passing his classes. I know we all want to see everyone succeed and be challenged, not just those who are falling short. So please reconsider the summer school options. Thank you for your time. Rebecca Royalty. Our next public comment is from Tanya Drew. To the board and district admin, you say you are following the science and doing what is best for our children, education, but yet you have been the only district in the state to keep with no school, wasted Wednesday. This continues to set our students back while all schools east of us are going to school and have been the whole school year. At this point, we have seen you don't care about the students or parents who have voiced and continue to voice their opinion over education of our children. On another note, the mask mandate was to slow the spread. Now that teachers are vaccinated and those who want to wear them will always be able to wear them we need to lift the mask mandate out school. Students and staff like less mandates have shown better numbers throughout this whole pandemic. Sorry, let me go back. Students and staff don't wear them properly anyway. As has been shown, the states that have allowed people to make the choice and have less mandates have shown better numbers throughout this whole pandemic. Florida and Texas have allowed schools back and allow students to wear or not wear masks, and it has been successful. Whenever will it be safe for you to allow people to have a choice? Meetings, you have hid behind keeping us out of your meetings. It is much easier to not have to face those you have made decisions for totally disregarding what the majority has asked and wanted all this year. As a result of your decisions, you will see now how it has hurt our district students and teachers alike. Without students, you don't need teachers or jobs. Longtime parent and alumni and child of a TUHSD long-term past teacher, Tanya Drew, Marco Stenese, parent. Our next public comment is from Brenda Walsh. Dear TUHSD board members, as a parent in your district, I want to thank you for keeping the mask requirement in place. I appreciate the dedication to keeping our students, teachers, administrators, and parents safe. My child has autism and anxiety. By keeping the mask requirement in place, he felt safe attending school in person, which is vital for his academic progress. I know you must have faced a lot of adversity in this decision, but I wanted to take the time out and thank you for putting the safety of our community first. Brenda Walsh, mom extraordinaire. Next public comment is from Amy Beeman. Is the board open-minded? Adjective, definition, willing to consider new ideas, unprejudiced, synonyms, approachable, impartial, observant, tolerant, broad-minded, interested, perceptive. Open meetings, ASAP, TKS, Amy Beeman. Our next public comment is from Heather Walgren. Dear DV board members, we are surrounded by districts that have removed their mask mandates, Mesa, Queen Creek, Apache Junction, etc., and there have been no adverse impacts. There is absolutely no justification to keep our kids masked. It is time to listen to the parents. Everybody was on board with distance learning, given how little was known about COVID, but now we know a lot. We know that children are rarely severely ill and rarely transmit to adults. The data showing our children are being psychologically hurt by mitigation is growing. We must stop treating our children as disease vectors. It's neurotic. I am mostly concerned about this continuing into the next school year with no plan in place to make masks optional. Our community demands the metrics and the plan. The latest science is showing masked children infection rate is greater than unmasked children. This should alarm you and all parents. We need a plan to stop. Parents deserve to see proof that masks are not physically or psychologically harming teenagers. We also need proof that masks are effective against transmission. I can link several studies proving infection rates are greater in masked classrooms. I can cite several studies and opinions from MDs and psychologists that conclude the physical, emotional, and ability to learn are harmed by masks. We deserve proof that masking children is both safe and effective. We deserve to understand the metrics that will allow masks to be removed. I would like my son to be able to graduate from DV next year, but masking children is morally wrong. Without proof, it is safe and effective on all levels. Life is more than COVID and germs. As I mentioned in my previous letter to the board, I recommend a survey on optional masks. Start listening to the parents. Our next public comment is from Lori Bastian. Five active cases of COVID-19 out of the 14,569 TUHSD population with 0 on-campus exposure cases. It's clear that opening our schools hasn't led to the catastrophic rise in case numbers and deaths that frenzied activists warned us about. Explain to us again why you kept our kids out of the classroom when surrounding districts worked diligently to get students safely back to campus much earlier. Tell us again why our governing board meetings are still closed. The board has used COVID to push its activist agenda and to keep parents locked out of meetings. Your own data proves you can open the doors and let us in. Do the right thing. If our students and teachers can do it safely, I'm pretty sure you can too. Lori Bastian, Corona del Sol parent. Our final public comment is from Dawn Westing, parent of 2 Corona sophomores. Board members, please restart to put students first. No more excuses. Open board meetings. Have school on Wednesdays. Make masks optional. Your ADM issues are consistent with your decisions that don't put students first. Thank you for offering free summer school for all now. My kids regret my decision every day. However, to force them to the online option, which is a key reason for the increased failures, ironic, isn't it? A full year of this is beyond enough. Fix it. Board members are likely vaccinated, yet still wearing masks and won't let the community speak in person. Vaccinated persons that have been exposed have 0 reason not to continue life as normal. I mean, they work, right? We loved our schools. We want them back. Students first. Thank you, Dawn Westing. That concludes public comment.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wilson. All right, next we have our consent agenda. I move approval of items G1 through G13. May I have a second?
I second.
Thank you so much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Motion passes 5-0. Next, we move on to Section H, Board Policies. First with Policy BE, School Governing Board Meetings, First Read and Adoption. Dr. Mendeville.
Thank you, President Garcia, Vice President Barraza, members of the board, executive team. this policy is around the school governing board meeting schedule. So administration brings forward changes to policies as a result of legislative action, recommendations from ASBA, policy review conducted by the executive team. Legal counsel and district administration review all new policies and policy changes before they're brought to the board for action. Proposed revisions to governing board policy BE. School governing board meetings reflect the district's practices in scheduling governing board meetings. Before we get to the policy to look at it, policy BGB, policy adoption, policies may be adopted or amended at a single meeting of the governing board, as we are proposing today, when the proposed policy or amendment is consistent with statutes and other policies, and board members are unanimously in favor of adoption. In front of you on the screen, you have policy BE, school governing board meetings. And in that change that we are recommending is that the previous language indicated that the first and third Wednesdays of each month during the regular school year are designated as the regular governing board meeting dates. And while we practice that, it's not necessarily, it doesn't give us some of the flexibility that we need to have on occasion. And so these dates may be that the changes we're proposing would be to include generally, and that's generally, the first and Thursday would be the days afforded for monthly regular school board meetings. However, these dates may be adjusted to accommodate government holidays or scheduled breaks in the educational process. This minor language change in the policy allows there's to be some flexibility within the calendar year schedule of governing board meetings throughout each school year. It's very simple. It just allows us that flexibility, and in the event, because I think there's an item with the actual calendar, we can always, at any point in the school year, we have the opportunity to call a special meeting or add another meeting to the monthly calendar based on whatever needs may be happening within the district at that time.
Great, thank you so much, Dr. Mandeville. Board members, do you have any questions on this item? All right, hearing none, seeing none, may I have a motion?
So move.
Right. Move for approval.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said so, oh, I'm sorry. I move to approve item BE, governing board meetings.
Perfect, thank you so much. Member Hodge, may I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you so much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion, the ayes have it, motion passes 5-0. Next, we have H2, policy IKFB, graduation exercises, first reading and adoption. Dr. Mendeville.
Thank you, President Garcia, Vice President Barraza, members of the board, executive team. We're excited about this policy as well. As I mentioned in my previous narrative on policy BE, we bring forward changes to policies as a result of legislative action is one way and reasons why we bring change proposals. ASBA has suggested this review because it's gone through the legislative process and therefore it's become law. It's in statute under HB 2705. A governing body cannot prohibit a student who is a member of a federally recognized Indian tribe or who is eligible to be enrolled as a member of a federally recognized Indian tribe from wearing traditional tribal regalia or objects of cultural significance at a graduation ceremony. The bill also states that objects of cultural significance and traditional tribal regalia include an eagle feather or eagle plume. This additional requirement has been added to the governing board policy IKFB, graduation exercises, which is attached in what you see on the screen right now. Again, as stated in policy BGB, we are allowed or permitted to adopt in one single meeting with the governing board when the proposed policy or amendment is consistent with statute, and in this case it certainly is, and that board members are unanimously in favor of the adoption.
Thank you, Dr. Mendeville. Board members, do you have any questions on this item? All right, may I have a motion, please?
Yes, Mr. President, I motion to adopt policy IKFB graduation exercises.
Thank you so much, Vice President Barraza. May I have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Member Montero. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Next, we have item I-1, public hearing for revision number 3 of the 2020-21 expenditure budget. Dr. Mendeville.
Thank you, President Garcia, Vice President Barraza, members of the board. Mrs. Muellmans, I'm going to have Mrs. Muellmans come up, and right now this is the time where we do a call to the public is convened to allow for public comment on the proposed revisions and adjustments to the 2020-2021 expenditure budget. I am not aware of any public comment, so we'll move forward. With your permission, President Garcia, that it's in tandem with revision number 3 in Business Services J. I don't want to.
Go for it.
Okay. So Mrs. Muellmans will be going over just briefly with some of the changes there, and actually this is kind of a fun one to share because there's a bit of a surplus there, so we're pleased with that. Mrs. Muellmans?
Thank you, Dr. Mendeville, President Garcia, members of the board. This is our third and final budget revision for the 2020-21 expenditure budget. And as you know, our ADM goes up and down and fluctuates throughout the year. And since we're on real-time funding, our ADM did take a move upwards, mostly entirely due to our online program in regards to the number of minutes that students are putting in. And so it has given us an additional $551,088 to add to our budget limit. And so the revision includes that dollar amount in the budget documents. The only other adjustments that were made to the budget documents have to do with the federal and state grant awards, and we basically reconciled those amounts to ensure that they are the same as what we've received from the Department of Education as far as allotments for those grants. That is all I have.
Thank you so much. Dr. Mendeville, do you have?
I don't.
Okay. All right. Next, we have item J2, approval of. Thank you so much, June Reppy. This does require approval. And also, board members, if you can stay back and sign the cover sheet at some point before you leave here today. All right, I move approval of item J1. May I have a second?
I second.
Thank you so much, Member Hodge. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Next, we have J2, approval of contract award for food items. Dr. Mendeville.
Thank you, President Garcia, members of the board. This item, as we prepare and anticipate having our students back next school year, we're excited about that. And right now, the Food and Nutrition Department is working diligently in preparation for our lunch programs and breakfast programs in tandem with the national federal lunch and breakfast programs. But they did an RFP. They issued a request for proposal via Bonfire. That's our district's e-procurement system. 23 vendors downloaded and took part in the solicitation process. The award was given to Cisco of Arizona, and we're confident that they'll be able to meet our needs as the Food and Nutrition Department continues to provide healthy and savory meals for our students at our schools.
Great, thank you so much, Dr. Mendeville. Board members, any questions on this item? Hearing none, seeing none. All right. May I have a motion for approval, please?
I move to approve the contract award for food items.
Thank you so much. May I have a second?
I second.
Thank you so much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Next, we have item J3, approval of contract award for the installation of synthetic turf fields. Dr. Mendeville?
Thank you, President Garcia, members of the board. This RFP proposal is just the continuation with our commitment to upgrade our football fields, turf, they're grass fields right now, and they've not had a whole lot of work in a number of years, but this is our commitment to all 6 of our comprehensive high schools that they have appropriate and safe synthetic turf fields to begin the next school year 21-22. And in that next round, as you may recall, Tempe High and Desert Vistas fields were converted from grass or dirt, I should say, in some instances with those fields, to synthetic turf. And our students are the benefactors of that, and our families, because it's really a blessing and welcome for our students to take part on and use the field continuously throughout the year, rather than just small times during the school year where they're able to be on the grass. So Corona del Sol and McClintock High Schools are the next 2 schools. An RFP was presented or cast, and Elite Sports Builders, Field Turf USA, and Wright and Construction, but sports fields were received, and it was awarded to sports fields and in the amount of just over $4 million. In this process, we are also realizing that a lot of infrastructure work that needs to happen is going to happen, particularly with Corona del Sol, with their irrigation and just where the water rests on that field isn't right. And so part of that cost will be incurred in this process to make that field right. I have said repeatedly in public that we have, I think, some of the most beautiful campuses around, and I've been around a few in my day. And these are multi-million-dollar facilities, and it's a testament to the board and our community that we continue to take care of these facilities, because again, the benefactors are our students and our communities. So this is another good thing for us to approve.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mandeville. Any questions, comments from board members? Vice President Braza?
Yes, I just wanted to reiterate what you just mentioned, Dr. Mendeville. Anytime we have an opportunity to speak about these fields and what the benefit is, I think is great. It provides more square footage, like you mentioned, for the entire school, not just for the football program or graduation or ceremonies. It really does provide useful square footage, improves, there's already impacts in terms of the benefits for concussions and injuries on those fields, as well as the water usage. I really appreciate the aspect of the water usage. These fields don't have to utilize as much water, and plus when it does rain, what I did learn from touring some of these, I believe it was the Desert Vista, Desert Vista fields with Mr. McDonald. And Sean showed me the whole construction aspects and the whole engineering that went behind those fields. And what's great is rain that would essentially hit the field would just be absorbed or moved naturally. What I started to realize is that the funneling of water goes into our water supply and eventually makes its way into our facilities where it goes to become treated. So that's actually an additional benefit, in my opinion, is being able to deter water in those various ways that was once did not have that ability. But most importantly, I think, is that the students, again, like you said, are going to be a big benefactors. I think the community deserves this, and I really appreciate the district putting so much emphasis and hard work into it. And Sean, I really appreciate all the hard work that you and everyone have at each site have done to get these field completed, the two completed, within time for our football programs to be able to utilize them last year. That was incredible, and I don't think a lot of people understand that you really had to make sure that our crews were hitting their deadlines to make that possible, and it was very special to be able to see those during that fall period, especially in 2020. So this is a great project for our district, and I really appreciate the emphasis. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vice President Barraza. I echo all of your thoughts. All right, I move approval for item J3. May I have a second?
I second.
Thank you so much. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion passes 5-0. Next, we move on to new business, K1 2021 Governing Board meetings. Dr. Mendeville.
Thank you, President Garcia, members of the board. In tandem with the policy change that you approved, this is an example of the revised 2021 board meeting dates, where we have removed one board date, June 2nd, 2021, where it makes sense for a natural break, and then September 1st, 2021. And this allows us, the approval of the policy allows us to make this change. And I just want to remind everybody, at any moment, we can add these dates back or even add more dates, should that be necessary, in the form of a special meeting or study session. So the language in the policy, again, just permits us to be a bit more flexible and not so restrictive.
Great, thank you so much, Dr. Mandeville. Board members, any questions on this item? No? All right, may I have a motion?
Mr. President, I motion approval of K1 2021 Governing Board meetings.
Thank you so much. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 5-0. Next, we have K2, legislative priorities for the 2022 ASBA political agenda. Dr. Mendeville.
Each year, thank you, President Garcia and members of the board. Each year, the governing board, you are asked, along with all the other governing boards in the state, to weigh in on your top 5 to 7 priorities for the ASBA's political agenda at the Arizona School Boards Association, for those who are listening out in the community. ASBA submitted the policy agenda themes for this year, along with some bulleted priority points. And so this is an opportunity for you to affirm the top 5 to 7 priorities so that we can submit them to ASBA by the May 21st deadline.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mendeville. Board members, in looking at these various options for priorities in the respective themes, Dr. Mendeville reached out to us, asked us to send in top 5 to 7 priorities, at a minimum preparing 5 so we can submit it to the Arizona School Board Association by the May 21st deadline. Dr. Mendeville, have we received sufficient priorities to meet any number of slots for the 5 to 7 priorities?
We have, not all have submitted responses. That doesn't mean that they're not thinking about it. But I think if we could solidify, I know there were some recommendations that seem to be all following along the same thing, but I don't have those in front of me. Mrs. Reppy, you have them, if I can. Some of the priorities that were that seemed to be a common theme were revising the school finance formula, and that's certainly one that needs attention every year. I think that's a top one. Reform current year funding to a system that provides districts with appropriate, stable annual budgeting ability, and technical reliability. And I think that stems from the changes in statute that switched us over to current year funding, and rather than creating a budget on the last year's ADM. So that's why we have had these 3 revisions in this school year, one of the reasons. And adequately funding special education programs, which we can all agree to, because what we do have in grants for special education, it doesn't cover the entire cost. The district gladly assists in picking up the cost to appropriately fund our special education programs. Providing funding regarding safety, including mental health and wellness initiatives, which goes along and in tandem with our district strategic plan and our recently enacted social emotional wellness ad hoc committee, along with those board priorities. Support policy that protects students and staff from discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. All those are priorities for the district as well. We also had a comment on or suggestion for ELL, English Language Learner Reform, and investing in technology so that technology is an equitable right and not something that is based on your zip code and where you live or all of that, but access to technology, and that it's equitable for all our students. So while we have still a little bit more time, so if we can solidify that up, we can still meet the deadline for that May 21st.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Mandeville. All right, board members, so that, the ones that Dr. Mandeville read total up to 6. We have options of 7. Is there 2 questions for you? One, would you like to continue with those that were shared? And or 2, would you like to add in or change any of them?
I like the ones that we have.
That we have, okay. Great. Is there, Vice President Braza?
You know, for me, also looking in terms of just the finances, I like the idea, and it doesn't have to be added, but I do like the idea of established financial and academic transparency for all institutions and individuals that accept public funds. We know how, you know, when we look at our charter schools, they aren't held to the same financial accountability as public schools are. I think when we talk about taxpayer dollars, it should all be transparent, and it should be all accounted for. So I think financial academic transparency for all institutions and individuals should be something that school boards across the state should make a priority and say that all education funding should be open to the public.
All right, thank you so much, Vice President Barraza. Board members, that with that addition, we'd have 7. Is there consensus on these 7? Yes, all right. Then I move to approve our 7 priorities and send over to the Arizona School Board Association with the 7 that were read. May I have a second, please?
I second.
Thank you so much. Let's see here. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 5-0. Thank you so much. ASBA will be happy that we're sending those over now. Next, we have information.
President Garcia?
Yes.
Sorry, I just went back to look. I think that would be 8 items. I'm not, because
Sorry?
there are 5 that Dr. Mendeville read, and then there was the addition of the ELL and the equity for,
technology.
and that would have gotten us to 7.
Yes.
But then the transparency one would have gotten us to 8.
Transparency doesn't have to be applied to that, but I just think it's something that we should advocate on a daily basis or on a regular basis as educators, and looking at vouchers and how money is spent with charter schools. I think they should be held to the same standard.
Yes.
Vice President Barraza, that is a great point, and that's also inherent in the funding formula consideration that we need to look at a better way to fund schools, and that component needs to be included in that, and I think it is as well.
Yeah.
I appreciate that info. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Member James. All right, next.
President, one question.
Yes.
Do we have to pick a person to do it right now, or is it to represent us, or is it the same person?
No, so right now, all ASBA is asking us is to send
Okay.
the 5 to 7 priorities.
Okay.
Once the conference comes back around, then we'll have that discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, of course. All right, next we have item for information, L1, our budget update. Dr. Mendeville?
Thank you, President Garcia, members of the board. I'm going to invite Mrs. Muehlmans up, and she's going to give us a brief verbal presentation, because next board meeting, we're going to have probably a bit of a slideshow. And again, this is in response to kind of sharing the budget development story for 2021 and 2022 school year, and giving a little nugget of information that's based on what we know. As you know, the legislative process can be very slow and labored, and so we're still waiting for information. But we have some elements of the budget that are known right now, and compared to other school districts in the East Valley, we are fortunate in Tempe Union that we do have revenue capacity to do some good things for our employees. So, Mrs. Muehlmans.
Thank you, Dr. Mendeville, President Garcia, members of the board. On Thursday, April 29th, the Budget Advisory Committee was presented with the information that was given to the board at the last governing board meeting. We then spent time talking about the different employee groups regarding their requests. Our discussion will continue tomorrow. We have another meeting scheduled. And like Dr. Mendeville said, our plan is to come to the governing board with our recommendation at the May 19th governing board meeting.
Great, thank you so much. All right, next we have item L2, public participation at governing board meetings. Dr. Mendeville?
Thank you, President Garcia, members of the board. As a reminder, our goal is to open the board meetings, to have public comment. That's always going to be the goal that we strive for, but we need to be consistent with the criteria that we set forth when we began the school year in person. And some of those benchmarks that we talked about and that Mr. McDonald has emphasized in his discussion is that we look to the moderate range as our marker to do these kinds of things. And right now, we were, 3 or 4 weeks ago, we were heading in a direction of to the moderate range because we were in substantial. And we're now in the high range for community transmission as reported by the Maricopa County Department of Public Health on May 13th, or today and now. So if the district's benchmark metrics are the moderate range for community transmission as defined by the Maricopa County Department of Public Health and Centers for Disease Control before the May 19th governing board meeting, the Benedict Education Center boardroom where we sit today will be open to the public during the call to the public only. However, if the district's benchmarks metrics are in the substantial or high range for community transmission as reported by the Maricopa County Department of Public Health on May 13th, then the district will continue with its current process for accepting emailed public comments at the May 19th governing board meeting and reassess the metrics before the June 16th governing board meeting. We are reassessing the metrics daily. In order to observe guidance from state and federal officials regarding social distancing, the governing board room will be closed to the public at all other times at the appropriate time for public comment. Individuals will be allowed in to the governing board room one at a time to deliver their comments. Please note masks are still required when on district property and will be required to deliver an in-person public comment. This meeting will be streamed live on the district's YouTube channel.
Great, thank you so much, Dr. Mendeville. All right, next we have section M for communications from governing board members. Member Hodge?
Yes, thank you. I first want to start off by having everyone wish Mr. McDonald a happy birthday, and maybe we can sing a quick little song for him since he just turned 21 today, so. So I'll start it off.
No, he didn't. He turned 50. Be proud of it.
You know what?
Proud of it.
When it's your birthday, we will definitely tell your age too. All right. We're going to start off with Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear John. Happy birthday to you. Yay. Okay, and thank you for that. And also, I want to, it's National Teacher Appreciation Week. There's not enough can be said for that. We appreciate, they are the rock and soul of our district. I have my quote today, and it says, teaching should be as such, it's offered as a privilege, as a value gift, not as a hard duty. And that's by Albert Einstein. So it just sets the tone for this. So I wish every educator out there happy Teacher Appreciation Week. I had a few things I did this week, the last couple of weeks. First off, I want to thank the TUHSD. They had a film festival hosted at Desert Vista, which was phenomenal. I did a lot at Desert Vista. I was there on Thursday, and I actually sat down with them for a tour. I went to the Tempe Salutes for our military. The city of Tempe puts it on every year. It's probably one of my favorite things that I do. I enjoy it, along with Vice President Barraza and Dr. Mendeville, which we didn't see each other because we were sitting in different areas, but it's just the pride to see them stand there and to see them get the induction into it, and it's just the pride in the families. I just want to say congratulations. McClintock hosted a track and field city meet, which they don't usually host at McClintock usually. So that was fun to watch for the last couple of days. I was also, as at Corona and Desert Vista, I was their NHS keynote speaker at Desert Vista on Thursday. And the reason why I brought Corona back in, between Corona and Desert Vista, we inducted over 300 students between the two schools, and that's mostly just seniors. So I'm just so proud to say that that's what our school is and our district is integrity with. Desert Vista they invited me to their banquet, their basketball banquet. It was very important because they got to say goodbye to one of their fine vice assistant principals, Tommy Eubank, who will be joining another district. Congratulations, Mr. Eubank, on your job. I got a chance to participate in Compadre's blood drive yesterday, and it was conducted by Susan Manning, and it was a really great turnout. They had all the staff, kids that were over 18, they all appreciated it, so it was good on that. And I heard that Mountain Marcos had a great parent night / Compadre great parent night just a few nights ago. So congratulations to Principal Tarlar and everybody else who was hosted at that. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Member Hodge. Member Montero?
Thank you. So I first want to echo Ms. Hodges' point and wishing a happy Teacher Appreciation Week to all of our teachers here in Tempe Union and across Arizona. I know it has not been an easy year. So I know, a simple thank you is not enough to show our gratitude for all that you have done for our students and for our community this year. So thank you so much. I also wanted to recognize that it's Mental Health Awareness Month, and we celebrated by having our first ad hoc committee meeting yesterday evening. We have a really good group of around 20 individuals, parents, students, one student representative from each of our 7 schools, administrators, community partners, et cetera. And so I'm really excited for the work that we're going to continue to do, and excited for the final report and recommendations that we'll have for the governing board coming up. And then lastly, I saw that Friday is National Lunch Hero Day, so wanted to give a big thank you to all of our cafeteria staff for all the hard work that you are doing to make sure that our students and community is fed. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Member Montero. Member James?
Thank you. Yes, we had our Strategic Goal 3 meeting last week, and looking at ideas of how to attract and retain educators. And the committee is really made up of so many amazing people with fabulous ideas, and Dr. Keller leads us, and I think it's been a really productive experience. I'm looking forward to the Diablos Awards tomorrow. We have so many educators that are being honored, and it's going to be fun to see and actually get to watch that. I'll echo Board Member Montero. Happy National School Lunch Hero Day. I have definitely, as a mom, appreciated our school cafeteria workers on the days that I forget to pack lunch and my kids get fed. And then congratulations to the 86 students who received the 2020-2021 Seal of the Arts, and all of the educators that helped them achieve that goal. That's a really impressive number, and it speaks to how strong the arts are in our district. And of course, Teacher Appreciation Week. I want to thank all our Tempe Union educators, my children's teachers. I had just, I think, a great honor of watching my own children learn virtually, and just seeing that validation that our educators are what defines the school culture and the classroom. I watched in real time my own children grow and learn, and I got to hear their teachers do their job in just such an amazing way every day. And I know that our Tempe Union teachers have worked so hard in multiple modalities, and to say thank you is not enough. I hope that they're getting spoiled this week, and I hope they know that we appreciate them, and our goal is always to make sure that they are taken care of emotionally and physically. So to all our teachers, thank you for everything.
Thank you so much, Member James. Vice President Barraza?
Yes, so really short, just one I attended today, Marcos Denisa. I was very proud to see a teacher in the Fine Arts Academy at Marcos, Reagan Guzman. I apologize, Reagan. One of her students won the Valley Metro Bus Rap competition. So if you're not familiar with it, students across, I believe it's Maricopa County specifically, can submit artwork that will be judged by their panels, and they determine who will have a bus wrapped with their artwork. And not only did we win, and I apologize, I don't have that student's name, but Dr. Mendeville, if we can mention them in the next board meeting just to celebrate the students. Their first place and second place both came out of Marcos Nisa, out of Reagan's class. And if you're not familiar with it too, she is kind of a big deal when it comes to these awards. Not only was it this year her first and second, but the first place winner, and they brought the bus to Marcos, which was really great. So I know that Megan Sterling's on it to get all those photos out on our social media, if not already. But it's really great to see that, and I think it's such a testament to the staff and the dedication they have, and the Fine Arts Academy in general is wonderful. Reagan basically has helped to me cultivate the students to be able to express themselves, because it's not only the first time that students out of her classroom have won this. It's last year, I believe, and the year prior, in 2016 as well. So yeah, and so I think it just sends or represents a testament to her ability to pull out, those expressive emotions in each student and really celebrate them. So I'm very, very proud that it came out of Tempe Union again and out of her classroom. I also attended this Tempe Salute with Board Member Hodge and Dr. Mendeville. Again, we didn't see each other. It was, it was very different this year, just because of the whole numbers and how we're really just organizing it, but it's a very, very, very important celebration to me. Growing up in Tempe, it's one of the little things in our community that still make us a small town in such a big, area. What essentially happens is these students are graduating out of Tempe Union and a couple other schools, but basically in Tempe. And they made a commitment to serve our armed forces. And the city of Tempe has made it a commitment to celebrate those students. So these students are being celebrated, are graduating. They're going to be moving on to the next step this year. And it's wonderful to see the community, the mayor, council members, school board members, parents, supporting their children, just see it all come together. They play the armed services medley. Individuals from the military come and speak to the students. It's very, very touching. And I was very proud to attend, and I will continue to attend. Other than that, I attended the Employee Benefit Trust committee, last week, I believe it was, maybe a week prior. And I just want everyone to know that there's a lot of very smart people on that committee, and they do an incredible job looking at all of our employee benefits trusts. And I feel very comfortable with everyone in that committee and the hard work they're doing. I continually blown away by it. So just want everyone to know, I can't speak much about because it may, stuff from these committees come out of the committees come to the board for votes. So I just want to make sure that I acknowledge Diane and please convey, to them that I feel very, very comfortable and very thankful that they're looking at our benefits. And that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Vice President Barraza. All right. I also want to echo congratulations to Reagan Guzman and her students. We have a track record for winning this competition. And also, I remember back in 2012, McClintock, a student at McClintock also won that competition as well. And so Tempe Union is well on track with this. As well, I want to acknowledge and recognize and thank all of our teachers for Teacher Appreciation Week. I have often said that I would never be where I've been able to get to because of my teachers that went above and beyond to do what it was, to get me to those points to succeed and thrive. Similarly with my brother. And so I will always have a deep appreciation for our teachers and some who are still teaching in Tempe Union. I won't say who, because this is a 10-year reunion, but I'm greatly appreciative of all of our teachers and staff, especially this most difficult year. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And within that theme, invite everyone to watch the Excellence in Education Awards tomorrow. They're being streamed live by the Tempe Diablos, recognizing our top awardees, who are all phenomenal individuals across the district and also in our sister districts as well. And then I would just like to end with Feliz Cinco de Mayo, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your week. And with that, our next meeting is scheduled for May 19th. Graduation is the following day. And with that, may I have I move to adjourn. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you so much. All those in favor?
One moment, Mr. President. Do we acknowledge M2 communications from Superintendent
Yes. Thank you.
Executive Team?
Thank you, Vice President Barraza. Dr. Mendeville, is there any updates from you or our executive team? Thank you for catching that, Vice President Barraza.
Thank you, both of you, actually. But I only one, but I could say a whole lot. But I want to just acknowledge our teachers, and I sent you a communication to you today, so I hope you read that, and it's sent with genuine care, concern, and great appreciation for all the work you do. And I think we have a teacher sitting in the back room, Kim McElway. And so, but I tell you, I will put our teachers up against any school, any charter, any private. We have, I think, some of the best teachers around. Talk about dedication to our students, to our families, to our community. And I continue to be impressed with their rigor and their passion. And I know they're all tired right now, and they have every right to be tired. So I just want to applaud them and honor them because they deserve it. So thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Dr. Mendeville and Vice President Barraza. All right, the motion on the table is to adjourn. May I have a second?
All right, I second it.
Thank you so much, Member Hodge. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week.